Thank you for joining me on yet another mind-opening video regarding the occult, ancient, lost and hidden history, as well as esoteric knowledge. In my previous video, I have declared to make my next video based on the children of the Norse god Odin. Keep in mind that this video will be vaguely based of the audiobook, The Children of Odin, and the Book of Northern Myths. In this video presentation, I am going to attempt to show my viewers which of the remainder of the 7 main deities have been revered as creation gods and goddesses worldwide, which started in ancient Sumer and has made its way into all the other major empires that came thereafter. In my previous video, I have already shown the link, as well as many connections and similarities between the mother goddesses, Ninkursag, the 3 sisters of Hindu mythology known as Deity, Aditi, and Danu, the Assyrian mother goddess Mama Mutu, Isis, the mother goddess and queen of heaven, the mother goddess, Rhea, Gaia to the Greeks, Cybele to the Syrians and Romans, Frigga to the Norse, and the Irish mother goddess Danu, who is believed to be the mother goddess of the Tuatha De Danann. I have also shown some strong connections between the Sumerian father sky god Anu, Vayu to the Hindu religion, El to the Assyrians, Osiris to the Egyptians, Kronos to the Greeks, Odin to the Norse and Dian-Sate to the Irish. Not to mention 2 prominent sons of Anu and Enki, also known as Kronos and Rhea, which are Enlil, aka Zeus, and Enki aka Poseidon. So in this presentation, I will be focusing on the children of Zeus, mainly Athena, Persephone, Artemis, Aphrodite, Helios the sun god and moon goddess, but as before, I will trace their origins from ancient Sumer, beginning with the worship and cult of Inanna, followed by Shala the Sumerian grain goddess, Inanna the queen of the underworld known as Kur, Irkalla, and then the Mesopotamia sun and moon deities, and compare them to their equivalent in every other world empire which followed after ancient Sumer. So let's begin.
Over a span of 15,000 years, large-breasted female figurines have been found all over Europe and Asia. These female idols have either been carved into the rocks, temples, or been cut out of ivory, limestone, wood, or even bone. The Venus figurines are the most prominent idol found in almost every ancient culture and religion and have been unearthed by archaeologists in France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Turkey, the Middle East, Russia, and even Israel. Some of these Venus idols were carved out as far back as 27,000 BC, and majority of them are dated to be between 23,000 to 2100 BC. The latest discovered female idol has been dated to 1200 BC, and 350 of these Ashtaroth, Queen of Heaven idols, were uncovered in a Stone Age site in Israel, which dates back to the Yarmakian culture from 5500 to 5000 BC. The year 5500 was prophesied to be the year that Christ would be incarnated into this world through a virgin mother, according to the Book of Adam and Eve. So how fitting for the Queen of Heaven cult to spread throughout Israel around the same year. More on this later.
Before I can attempt to explain the connection between Inanna and the moon, it is vital to first get a little background info regarding all the other gods and goddesses associated with the moon. So seeing as these videos are based on the children of Odin and the Book of Northern Myths, it might be easier to start with Norse mythology. According to Norse mythology, there was another sun and moon called Sol that was a female sun goddess and Mani the male moon god. During the age of Sol and Mani, the Asgardian gods lived. These gods are what the Book of Enoch referred to as the Watchers or Archons, and the Sumerians referred to as the Anunnaki gods. They are also what the Bible calls sons of God, and yes, they are angels. Interdimensional beings, not extraterrestrial, but in fact celestial, that made a home for themselves here on earth in the pre-flood world. In the Book of Northern Myths, Heimdallr is considered to be the eldest of all the Aesir. He is the watcher of the gods and recounts the creation story to Freya's daughter, whom often sat with him to hear his wisdom. In one of his tales to Freya, he explains that during the age of the gods, there was another sun and moon. A man called Mundilfari had 2 children which he found to be so beautiful and shining, that he decided to name them after the 2 great lights in the sky, the sun and the moon. In the Norse myth on the origins of the sun and moon, the gods couldn't bear a common mortal, guided by pride, would take possession of the names of their creation, so they kidnapped both children of the man Mundilfari, and placed them in the sky, Mani the boy was made the carrier of the moon and was responsible for the movements of the moon, as well as its growth, decline and moon phases, and thus was worshipped as the moon god. The girl Sol was made the carrier of the sun, and responsible for the movements of the sun and thus was worshipped as the sun goddess. These two go on to have children of their own. The son takes over the role of his father Mani, and the daughter of Sol carries on her mother's duties and responsibilities to the sun, in the next world. Most people wouldn't realize that this tale of the sun goddess and moon god associated with a boy and girl is almost identical to the Sumerian tale of Swen the moon god and Ningal the sun goddess, who goes on to have a son that becomes the carrier of the sun and so worshipped as a sun god Utu by the Sumerians, Assyrians, and Babylonians. The twin of Utu is a female and she becomes associated with the moon and is named Inanna. It seems like, before there was a moon goddess, the moon was first personified as a male aspect, the same for the sun deity. It appears as if the sun deity was at first of the female gender, which has led me to my own theory on the gender switch. Looking at various ancient creation myths and various pantheon deities of the ancient civilizations, I have noticed quite a few male moon gods and female sun goddesses. It almost appears as if, during the pre-flood world, there was a male moon god and a female sun goddess, and after the world flood and the new year, so to speak, the genders switched for the sun and moon. The new civilizations, after the flood, worshipped the sun god and the moon goddess, just as Swen was the moon god and his son became the sun god Utu Shamash. So in order to understand who Inanna the moon goddess is, we need to look at all other moon gods, first that were considered male and not female, which is why I have shown you the Norse origin story for the moon god Mani and sun goddess Sol or Suna. There were many other moon gods and sun goddess, and just to name a few, I will start with the Egyptian god of the moon Thoth and Khonsu. Thoth was associated with the full moon, and was depicted as the man in the moon, whereas Khonsu was the moon god associated with a new moon. The moon was also considered to be a great white baboon or even the left eye of Horus. The waxing moon, on the other hand, was represented by the Egyptians in temple art as a fierce young bull, and the waning moon was represented as a castrated bull, nonetheless always depicted as a male gender, and therefore a moon god. The ancient Egyptians also called their moon god Aya, which could be spelled the same as Yah, and many scholars have claimed that Yah is just short for Yahweh and therefore is the same God of the Hebrews. I wonder sometimes if humanity is beginning to lose common sense, as Yah and Aya simply means the same as El and God. It is not a name but a title and simply just means God, just as there were many deities called the gods. Men was another moon god. He was considered to be of Phrygian, Western, Asia Minor origins, and was connected to fertility, healing and even punishment. The precursor to the moon god Men was Arma. The Japanese culture had their own male moon deity too. He was known as Isukiyomi, and was apparently born from the right eye of the creation god, Izanagi. This creation story of the Japanese moon god born from a right eye is quite similar to how the Egyptian god Thoth was associated with the left eye of Horus, don't you think? According to the Japanese creation myth of the sun and moon, the moon god Isukiyomi was the brother of the sun goddess, Amaterasu, as well as the brother of the storm god Susanoo. So here again a moon god is a sibling to the sun goddess as well as a weather god. And then there is Allah with his three moon goddess daughters, Alat, Ma'at and Al-Uzza. Allah is associated with the crescent moon, therefore the flag of Islam is a crescent moon, with a star at its horn, just as the Egyptians worshipped their moon deity as Aya or Yah, which is just a title and means God, so too are the Muslim nations worshipping a moon deity as a god, thinking that he is the same as Yahweh from the scriptures. Allah just means God, like Zeus which also means God. They are not the same deity, nor is Allah the same God of the Hebrews. The scripture states, "Thou shalt have no other gods." The question is, who are these other gods, that, though they carry the same title as Yahweh, the Creator, they are not to be worshipped as the Creator God? The Book of the Watchers, found in the Book of Enoch, can explain that in detail, as well as many creation myths of the various deities found in their polytheistic religions. Now that I have shown you the many moon gods from various cultures around the world, I wish to draw your attention back to Inanna the moon goddesses and others, just like her, that were also associated or connected to aspects of the moon in female form. Inanna has a very vague origin story, much like Aphrodite from Greek mythology. No two scholars can accurately state or even agree on the parentage of this elusive moon goddess, as some ancient Sumerian writings claims her father is Anu. Another poem or Sumerian hymn would go on to claim she is the daughter of Enlil, or Enki, and then there are those which claim she is the daughter of Inanna the Sumerian moon god, and sister to Utu Shamash, the Sumerian and Babylonian sun god. Likewise, scholars and historians have never been able to confidently claim which of the two origin myths on Aphrodite, Venus, is the correct origins of Aphrodite, and which of these two Greek gods is the true father of Aphrodite. Many scholars have and do still find many similarities between Aphrodite, Ishtar, and Inanna, and many claim that Aphrodite is simply copied from the older tales of Inanna the Sumerian goddess of war, love, fertility, sexuality and even the moon. I hope that I can bring some awareness and understanding on how these two are connected. So let's begin with Inanna, being a daughter of Swen the moon god. Now, as I have shown, Swen the moon god has been equated with various other male moon deities in various cultures and religions. One such culture would be ancient Egypt. In Egypt, Khonsu and Thoth were associated with the moon. Khonsu was portrayed as a child and an old man, representing the new and full moon, and Thoth was represented as the waxing and waving crescent moon. Thus you have the child, the father and the old man phases of the moon. The Egyptian god Thoth was portrayed with a crescent shape on his head, which was known as the Atef crown. Although there is no mention of Khonsu having any children, which for obvious reasons, as a child cannot father any children, nor can an old man, though Thoth was believed to have fathered children, as many as 8 with his wife Mot, the Egyptian goddess of law and justice. It was also believed by the Egyptian scholars that the Egyptian god Thoth had a daughter which was in his likeness, a goddess associated with wisdom, writing, scribes, knowledge and libraries, much like the Hindu goddess Saraswati, and Allah's other 2 daughters, Alat, which was the goddess of fortune such as the Hindu goddess Lakshmi, and Al-Uzza, which was worshipped as the goddess of wisdom, such as Saraswati the goddess of writing, knowledge, wisdom, which would make Manat the goddess of fate and the eldest, mother goddess, that was associated with the Greek goddess Nemesis and death. The same as the goddess Parvati was considered the goddess of fate and in her alter personality as the goddess of death Ma Kali. So back to Inanna, and her association with the moon. I hope I have shown you how all of the moon god's 3 daughters, Manat, Alat and Al-Uzza, match up with Parvati, Lakshmi, and Saraswati. I now wish to show you how Inanna the daughter of the moon god Inanna is not only associated with these same 3 daughters of Allah, or the Tridevi goddesses of the Hindu religion, but that they are in fact a 3-in-1 goddess, meaning the same goddess, but with 3 different facets, representing 3 different aspects of the same goddess. According to her 3 different phases, of not only the moon, but also the connection this goddess have with the planet Venus and its different phases. So let's begin with the eldest daughter of the moon god, Manat. Manat was the goddess of fate, and also destiny, which includes death. She was not only associated with Nemesis, the goddess of death, but was also equated with the Greek goddess Ananke. Ananke was worshipped as the goddess of fate, fortune, time, death and destiny. You could say that Manat Nemesis and Parvati the goddess of fate, destiny and death, were synchronized with Alat, Lakshmi and thus became equated with Ananke, which compels all aspects of both the goddesses Manat and Alat into one, thus became associated with Ananke the goddess of fate, fortune, death, time and destiny. But that is not all. She was also associated with a spindle, and thus the mother of the 3 fates, also known as the Moira. Much like the 3 great Norns, that are sisters which weave the destinies of everyone according to the Norse mythology. Their names were Jurthur, which means past, Verthandi, which means present, and Skuld, which means future. These 3 are almost identical to the 3 phases of the moon, as well as the growth cycle of a woman. From child, the past tense, youth, and virgin maiden, which represents the new moon phase, to present tense, which represents the crescent waxing and waning moon phase and the moon mother figure, and then the future tense, which represents the full moon, when a woman grows into an old wise woman, also known as the crone. Most people and scholars whom have equated Inanna with Aphrodite and the planet Venus, have only done so, based on her connection to beauty and promiscuity, but little people have though about the phases of the planet Venus, which is very similar to that of the phases of the moon. Just as the moon has different phases, and one of those phases, is the all too familiar, crescent moon phase, that has been connected with many moon goddesses, such as Selene and Artemis, the planet Venus too, was depicted by the ancient Sumerians in the crescent phase. In fact, the crescent Venus phase, was depicted with two horns on the head of Astarte's idols, and she was known as the evening star. It was believed by the Sumerians, Babylonians, Assyrians etc. that when planet Venus was aligned in front of the sun, then the planet Venus would appear as a crescent shape just like the moon, and perhaps the reason why Inanna became associated with not only the moon goddess but also planet Venus and the spirit that rules over planet Venus, which is Aphrodite Urania. The Nabateans worshipped Al-Uzzah, one of Allah's three moon daughters with Aphrodite Urania, which means the heavenly or celestial Aphrodite. They also believed that Manat, Alat and Al-Uzzah was one and the same goddess, but was depicted as three distinct goddesses according to her three different phases like the moon as well as planet Venus. On one of the Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets, it reads, "If a star is visible on the right horn of Venus, you will have good crops in the land, when upon the right horn of Venus, a star is not visible, the land will bear many misfortunes." Another omen reads, "If Ishtar takes away upon her right horn a star, and if Ishtar is large and the star is small, then the king of Elam will be mighty." Now it makes a lot more sense how Astarte is derived from Ishtar and how she is connected with the crescent shape of the moon as well as the planet Venus. Astarte was known as the goddess with the two horns. I firmly believe that Ishtar and Inanna is one and the same, and that two separate goddesses have not just been synchronized throughout various religions into one goddess. It is in my own personal opinion that a certain spirit being was worshipped in one shape and form in the pre-flood world, or the time the gods lived, and took on the different shapes and form after the Great Deluge, with various different names and mythologies attached to it. In light of support, for my personal opinion, I will show a few similar religious stories, based on several ancient myths and folklore, which supposedly explains the origins of this same female goddess spirit. Although these religions are separated from country and culture, space and even time, they do carry many similarities in these myths and folklore about the same goddess. So let's take a look at the Norse mythology first and the goddess Freya. According to the Norse mythology, Freya is a goddess from the Vanir tribe, worshipped which were said to be the older goddesses between the Aesir and Vanir, very similar to the Titans and Olympian pantheon of deities. She was also considered to be a giantess daughter of the Vanir god Njord and his sister wife, which usually goes unnamed, yet she shares many similarities with the goddess Tethys, Danu and even Dione, the mother of Aphrodite. Freya was believed to be the twin sister of the god Frey. She was associated with the moon, magic, divination, sexuality, war and even Fridays, which in Germanic language is Frigga, that's also associated with Frigg, the bride of Odin. But that is not all, there is much more to the goddess Freya than meets the eye. Freya is believed to reside in Vokvanger, a land found within the earth, whereby she reigns supreme over half of the soldiers that fell in battle. It was believed by the Old Norse, Scandinavian, and Viking clans, that Freya usually chose men of war, from those that fought and died in battle. One half of the slain would come under her rule in her domain called Vokvanger, and the other half would go to Odin and his domain called Valhalla, which was considered to be the hall of the slain where the Einherjar fight all day, drink and eat all night, and are constantly reborn to fight another day. Freya herself was often portrayed as a warrior queen, much like Diana, the queen of the Amazons, or as Hollywood has named her Wonder Woman. She shares many warlike characteristics with Athena, moon characteristics with Artemis and Selene, promiscuous characteristics with Aphrodite, Venus and characteristics of magic and the underworld with Hecate, the triple-headed goddess in Greek mythology. And as you will see very soon, they are not synchronized to become one goddess, but is in my own researched opinion the same goddess with many forms, shapes, names and aspects. According to the Irish myths, they have a goddess Danu and also a goddess Bridget, which has many similarities to the goddess Freya, Aphrodite, Venus, Artemis, Athena, Hecate, Ishtar, Astarte, and Inanna. One such a myth is the tale of the fairy queen of Irish and Celtic folklore. The fairy queen is believed to reside in Tir na Nog, the netherworld in fairyland. She was associated with the kidnapping of children, especially beautiful babies, young nursing mothers, and sometimes young male youths. And even cows. Sounds a bit like alien abduction stories, doesn't it? Moving on. Like the fairy queen that resides inside the earth, the goddess Freya too, had a domain inside the earth or in the netherworld. It is as mentioned above called Vöklavangr and was believed to be in a vast field, which is often how fairyland is portrayed. She is also connected to the underworld and death, much like Inanna's sister Ereshkigal and the sister of Aphrodite and Artemis, which is Persephone, queen of the underworld, whom is often depicted with bird-like wings and claws of a bird for feet, just as the sirens of Greek mythology was depicted, half woman and half bird, or half woman and half fish. Which brings me to the next explanation regarding the similarities between Isis, Hathor, Lilith, Danu, Aphrodite, and Freya. According to the Book of Enoch, there were not only male watchers, sons of God, which were angels that lusted after mortal woman on the earth, but also female angels amongst them. Two of these female angels are mentioned in the Greek mythology and I believe may be the same beings in the Norse mythology. In the Book of Enoch, it states that the females of the angels that went astray when the sons of God descended to the earth and chose mortal woman to be their lovers, so that they could sire children of their own through them, a few female angels did exactly the same. They chose some male mortals to become their lovers and attendants. One of these is a well-known tale written down and preserved on the Sumerian tablets. It is the tale of Inanna and Dumuzi the shepherd, which has countless similarities to that of the tale about Aphrodite, Persephone, and Adonis, also known as Dionysus and Bacchus. Dumuzid, also considered to be Tammuz, the son and lover of Semiramis, was believed to be a shepherd and consort of Inanna, Ishtar. Dumuzid had a sister called Geshnana, the goddess of agriculture, fertility and dream interpretation. In the Sumerian king list, Dumuzi is listed as an antediluvian king and early king of Uruk, in the post-flood world. There is a very similar story in the Aphrodite and Adonis myth. Aphrodite, a celestial goddess, found an abandoned baby boy, that she gave to her sister Persephone of the underworld to raise. When he becomes a young handsome youth, looking after his flock in the field, she lays eyes on his beauty, and instantly falls in love. She descends to his location and seduces him in the form of a beautiful young woman, pretending to be a mortal woman and hiding her goddess aura, which is her bright nature. Something the sons of God also did when they had relations with mortal woman on the earth. A row over Adonis breaks out between Persephone and Aphrodite and the father of the gods. Zeus decides that Adonis should spend one half of the year during fall and winter with Persephone in the underworld and the other half of the year with Aphrodite on Mount Olympus. Thus the myth of Adonis being reborn every spring and summer became a ritual of celebrations during the summer and spring equinox, and he was deified into a fertility god. The morning ritual for Tammuz would occur on every fall, winter equinox, when it was believed he would enter into the underworld to die, and was a ritual which was carried right through ancient Sumer into the timeline of the prophet Ezekiel in scriptures. According to the Sumerian tablets, Dumuzid was a consort of Inanna, Ishtar. When Inanna decided to descend into the underworld, he did not mourn her loss, and so she asked Enki to call up some demons from the underworld to drag his sorry ass to hell. Inanna felt some remorse for her lover, and so she made a deal with her sister to find a replacement for half the year, that would stay in his place in the underworld with her, and so they can share Dumuzi throughout the year. 6 months he will remain in the underworld with Ereshkigal, Persephone, and the other 6 months with Inanna, Aphrodite, and Olympus, forever deified into a fertility god, and taking on aspects of Christ being put to death and resurrected. How convenient that this deified shepherd would tie back to ancient Sumer, where idolatry began after the flood. Although Dumuzi, aka Adonis, have been deified into a fertility god, he was once a mortal, or semi-mortal and semi-divine, according to the Greek myths of his birth. It is believed by scholars of history, myth and Greek philosophers and poets, such as Homer, that Adonis was born to Cinyras and his daughter Mira, or even Phoenix the son of Agenor, whom was a son of Poseidon, and thus Adonis is not just linked to Zeus, whom I have acquainted with, Enlil, but also Poseidon, aka Enki's bloodline. There are, however, more than one origin myth for Adonis, and one of these have a much closer connection to the ancient Sumerians and religions which followed thereafter. One tale of Adonis, that not only ties him to Inanna, aka Aphrodite the female Lucifer, but also the male Lucifer, goes as follows. In Greek mythology, Phaeton was a son of Eos, the titaness goddess of dawn. Eos fell in love with Cephalus of Athens. Cephalus was a member of the Athenian royal family. He was a son of the princess Herse, which was a daughter of Selene and Zeus. Hermes became the consort of Herse, and they had a son together called Cephalus. The goddess of dawn fell in love with Cephalus and kidnapped him to become her consort in her celestial abode. They had a son together, called Phaeton, which sounds eerily similar to photon, such as a light photon. When Phaeton was a young child, Aphrodite kidnapped him, to become her night watchman at her most sacred shrines. According to the Minoan beliefs, which was a Bronze Age civilization connected to the island of Crete and other Aegean islands, Phaeton was called by the Minoans, a demoness, which according to them meant, morning and evening star, and going by scripture, there is a biblical verse in Isaiah which speaks of Lucifer the son of dawn. Could this be a reference to the same person, or spiritual being, which the ancient Greeks called Phaeton, a demoness, morning and evening star, which is another name for Lucifer the son of dawn? Perhaps it's a little clearer now, how the male Lucifer, which was also referred to as the morning and evening star, became connected with Aphrodite, Venus the female Lucifer. So how does male and female Lucifer tie into the Adonis myths and origins? Well, good thing I am an in-depth researcher of myth, folklore, ancient religions and the occult, for I am about to show just how far and deep down this rabbit hole goes. So far we have uncovered that Phaeton, light-bearer Lucifer, is a son of the goddess of dawn, but this Lucifer, Phaeton, have also became a father of his own seed, teaming up with Aphrodite, who is in fact his aunt. They have a son together called Astinos, who becomes the father of a son called Sandicus. Sandicus migrates to Syria, where he founded the city Kalandaris, which was an ancient city on the Mediterranean coast of Turkey. Sardanus married Pharnis, a daughter of the king Megaceres of Hyria, and they had a son together called Cinrius, who later on becomes the king of Cyprus, in central Greece. Cinrius is believed to have slept with his own daughter Mira, which he impregnated with Adonis. So long myth short, Adonis the son of Cinrius, was the son of Sadicus, which was the son of Astinos, who was the son of Phaeton aka male Lucifer and Aphrodite the female Lucifer, and Phaeton was the son of Cephalus and Eos the goddess of dawn. Makes a bit more sense, why in scripture it speaks of Lucifer the son of dawn, right? As you can see, the royalty and wealth of Lucifer's lineage is always kept within their extensive interconnected bloodline. Intermarriage and even incest was a very common thing amongst the gods and, amongst the ancient Greeks, before the flood of Noah, as well as marrying into other royal families and bloodlines to ensure that one of their own seed always stays in power. An age-old tradition which has been carried into the post-flood world. There is also another origin story for Phaeton, which translates to Shining One. Just as Lucifer is referred to as the Shining One and Light-Bearer. In this next Greek myth, Phaeton was believed to have been the son of Helios the sun god, and a water nymph. As unbelievable as this sounds, the Book of Enoch does mention that the angels went after strange flesh. This implies not only the mortals, that the watchers lusted after, but also animals and other spiritual beings, such as the many tales of Zeus and Hermes with the water nymphs, oceanids, tree nymphs, etc. Now moving on, Phaeton, the son of the sun god, wanted to try his luck at driving the sun chariot across the sky. With his inexperience, the horses reared up and scorched Africa, creating the Sahara Desert and the people, which apparently caused the darker skin tones of the African people. Zeus apparently was so upset about the damage that Phaeton has caused, so he hit him with a thunderbolt, sending him falling to the earth and to his death. Now if I may interject into this myth, that not only is Phaeton a name for Lucifer the Shining One, but it also makes him out to be the son of the sun god, just as found in the Egyptian religion with Osiris, Isis, and Horus. According to this myth, Zeus is the one that threw a thunderbolt or lightning bolt at Phaeton, which sent him falling to his death like lightning and apparently killed him. So not only is Phaeton connected to the Lucifer of the scriptures, whom was cast from heaven and fell like lightning to the earth, but he also was the son of the sun god, thus his name means the Shining One. And if that isn't enough of an elaborate tale to sell this Lucifer to the ancient Greeks and even Sumerians, the horse which guided the sun chariot that Phaeton was steering, was named Sirius. So there you have it, 3 elaborate myths made up to explain away the connection of the occult, and biblical references to Lucifer in the scriptures, and his connection to the sun god, the fall like lightning to the earth, the son of dawn, and the bright star Sirius, which Albert Pike, a 33rd degree Freemason, declared to be the same fallen angel Lucifer, and god of the Freemasons. I am not trying to tell you that these myths about Phaeton are true. I am trying to show how intelligent this being called Lucifer is, that he beat the biblical scribes to the chase, when he came up with some very elaborate explanations on why, and how Venus and Lucifer is connected, with the very four scriptures, which not only speaks about his title, his position in the heavens, his fall like lightning to the earth, but also a myth, was created to explain and how he became connected to the Sirius dog star, of ancient Egypt. If you were ever curious, as to what the mystery schools teach about Lucifer, it would be the very supposed myths, according to all religions, to explain away, who, or what he really is, so that, by the time the biblical scribes, and prophets would write, or prophesy about this spiritual fallen entity, he would be perceived, as nothing more than a myth, a symbol of man's evil deeds and desires, or even a mythical being, that was killed by a lightning bolt, which caused his fall to the earth and his death, and therefore is no longer alive, or even responsible, for the ancient Aryan ideology, the powers behind certain occult bloodlines, influence in the wars, and chaos of today, or the mastermind behind the New World Order, the fast-emerging, Antichrist state and religion, which would be the new one-world religion of the ancient mystery schools, and high occult druid influencers, which are already influencing the UN, NATO, World Economic Forum, and climate change agenda. The only way to achieve the goal of the ancient Luciferian bloodline, to once again rule as kings with humanity as their slaves, is to bring about a great reset, which will unite the world under a one-world state, and religion, one that merges all religions, and myths into ideology, the very doctrine that was first and foremost, created by not only the male Lucifer, but also his consort the female Lucifer. Their very Luciferian doctrine. This very doctrine has deceived so many high occultists, influencers, spiritualists, Satanists, so many old and new religions, and many political leaders. You may know this Luciferian doctrine through the writings of Madame Blavatsky, Aleister Crowley, Alice Bailey, Morals and Dogma, the writings of Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, Zoroastrianism, mystic Jewish Kabbalah, ascended masters, and even Norse and Sumerian mythology. The one thing they all have in common is the entity that has been the influence behind these myths, ideologies, writers and their spiritual guided doctrines, which is not only the male but also the female Lucifer. Some may know Lucifer by his other names, as he does have many, and so does his equal and opposite female consort. You have seen the Baphomet, equally male and female symbol, balancing out the male and female gender, the balance which all occultists believe in achieving, by descending into the pits of hell, becoming lower than the beast, and then rising from the belly of the beast, through the completion of various occult rituals and degrees, into becoming God themselves. So, if you were ever curious as to where this ideology comes from, that Freemasons, the ancient Druids, Egyptian priests and many political leaders believe in today, then one has to look no further than ETIDORHPA, which is the abode inside the earth of some of the fallen angels aka Watchers and their offspring, the very Agarthans that live inside the earth, which has clouded the mind of people like Crowley and even Adolf Hitler, which led to the age-old Aryan ideology of trying to bring back the ancient superior race that once ruled the earth. The truth is not out there, in space, it is underneath our feet, inside the earth, from where these entities emerge. The ancient Greeks called it Sheol and the underworld, the Sumerians, Akkadians called it Ur and Urkala, the Norse called it Helheim, and the Illuminati call it ETIDORHPA, and you are about to find out where the realm of the fairy folk is hiding, which are the very offspring of Lucifer and their abode, called Tir na Nog to the Irish. Many curious people have descended into fairyland, and have become wandering spirits, forever lost in Sheol. ETIDORHPA has taken on a new look and story, for the occultists, one that tries to explain away who the female Lucifer is, and where her field of dreams is located, the place where one stays forever young and beautiful. And if you know anything about the occult, you can fully agree with me that all occultists have tried and still do seek after the elixir of life, which is presided over by the fairy queen, Inanna, Aphrodite, Ishtar, Freya and her consort, the fairy king Odin, Azazel, Lucifer, Apollyon and Satan. So deep down the rabbit hole we must go, through all the interconnected tunnels inside the earth, and descending into the very belly of the beast, the womb and to the very core of Gaia, the bottomless pit which is the abode of male and female Lucifer, aka Azazel and Lilith, the mother of harlots, the lady in red, and the seductive spirit, that is seducing the political and religious leaders of today. From the past and into the present. As some would know by now, Satanists and occultists have a way of reversing and inverting the truth about sacred symbols, writings, and even spiritual knowledge. Satan is not a creator, and therefore he tries to copy the creation and changing it slightly, thinking he can make it better than the original, much like today's scientists whom are under the impression they can create new humans and animals through the means of cloning, splicing and merging DNA of animals and humans, which often leads to corruption and unnatural mutations. So speaking of such writings, where backmasking has been applied, I will now direct your attention to a Luciferian novel, which I came across during my research on Luciferianism and the cult of Inanna. I wish to introduce to the viewer the Luciferian doctrine of ETIDORHPA, which when read from right to left, spells Aphrodite, the goddess of love, sexuality, war, and a little add-on of my own, goddess of deception. According to the Luciferian novel, or let's just call it what it is, Luciferian writings of the Illuminati, a man named Captain William Morgan was recruited by high-level Freemasons after he tried to infiltrate their secret organization, learn their secrets and expose it to the world. He was first framed, imprisoned for a petty charge, kidnapped, and driven far away out of his hometown. His death had been faked, and he has been declared dead to his family and all who knew him. The year was 1826, a year in which the belief and sightings of fairies and UFOs was very prominent, and at an all-time high which continued into the 1900s. In this novel, Mr. William Morgan appears in a ghost-like apparition to a pharmacist called Uri Lloyd, and hands him a manifesto of his life, explaining exactly what had happened to him and how it came to be, that he can simply materialize in and out of this world, when and wherever he may wish to do so. He goes on to explain some of the secrets of these high-level Freemasons, whom kidnapped him, and explains some of their abilities and occult knowledge they possess, such as the potion he was made to inhale, which changed his appearance instantly, from a young man, into that of the elderly, his face becoming full of lines and wrinkles, and his hair instantly white. He goes on to explain how this brotherhood, which kidnapped him, and faked his death, had the abilities of communicating with him and others alike, telepathically. They then addressed him as a former brother of their secret fraternity, and explained to him that according to their secret oaths, the penalty for his crimes of betraying their secret oaths is death, yet he has been chosen for a very important task, and that is to ascend through a cave in Kentucky, which leads into tunnels that lead into Middle-earth. Inside the earth he will learn all the secrets of life, which only a very select few have ever been chosen for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and only a few of those select Freemasons have been able to return to the surface with this newfound knowledge. And the answers to the secrets of life, or shall I say immortality, which is known as moksha to the Hindu cults. Prior to the kidnapping of William Morgan, he received a letter from this occult society claiming to possess the elixir of life, and the path to it. Inside this letter, it reads as follows. Chapter 4. A Search for Knowledge. The Alchemistic Letter. I am the man who, unfortunately for my future happiness, was dissatisfied with such knowledge as could be derived from ordinary books concerning semi-scientific subjects in which I had long been absorbed. I studied the current works of my day on philosophy and chemistry, hoping therein to find something tangible regarding the relationship that exists between matter and spirit, but studied in vain. Astronomy, history, philosophy and the mysterious, incoherent works of alchemy and occultism were finally appealed to, but likewise failed to satisfy me. These studies were pursued in secret, though I am not aware that any necessity existed for concealment. Be that as it may, at every opportunity I covertly acquainted myself with such alchemical lore as could be obtained either by purchase or by correspondence with others whom I found to be pursuing investigations in the same direction. A translation of Geber's De Claritate Alchemy, by chance came into my possession, and afterwards an original version from the Latin of Boerhaave's Elementa Chemi, published and translated in 1753 by Peter Shaw. As you can see, the quest for immortality is an age-old endeavor, and obsession of the occultists, especially those that are practiced alchemists. Most people seem to think that alchemy is only about the transmutation of one element or metal into another, but few have ever come to realize that, just as metals and elements can change from one form into another, so too can spirit transform into matter, and as the ancient tale of Adam and Eve goes, matter can change back into spirit. The occultist knows this too well, and that is why they are willing to do whatever ritual it takes, makes the sacrifices they are required to make, chant the ancient words of spells and potions, and go wherever the road, or in this case interconnected tunnels inside the earth, leads to, in order to learn the secrets of alchemy, both scientific as well as pseudoscience. Which is exactly what this supposed science fiction novel called ETIDORHPA is about. Now, before anybody does consider this all to be mere fiction and pure imagination, or even speculation, I wish to bring into account the very similar tales of Olaf Jansen, Admiral Byrd and the Hollow Earth theory, to consider, couple that with the things written in myths and fairy folklore about the location of Tir na Nog, the netherworld, underworld or Sheol, and you don't have science fiction at the core of these conspiracies, but rather a great deception, deceiving some of our world top leaders, scientists, and of course occultists. Now back to ETIDORHPA. The man, or shall I say, main character in this novel, which the whole book was written about, is about a man named William Morgan, just an ordinary gentleman that happened to live in a little town, somewhere in U.S. Kentucky. He became obsessed with alchemy, the occult, and even got involved in Freemasonry. One day he received a letter from an alchemist, which led his life on a downward spiral into the bowels of the earth. Inside the earth, he came across artificial light coming from the center of the earth, which he perceived to be the earth's core, and appeared to be something like a bottomless pit, which is more like a black hole. He took a leap of faith, jumped into this black endless hole, and somewhat becomes an immortal, thinking he has become a god. He became nothing more than a ghost, forever trapped in the in-between realm, stuck between dreamland and reality, being nothing more than a lost soul, just wandering around in space and time, until the time of consummation that has been appointed for the earth. He shows up from time to people he chooses to reveal himself to, making all kinds of claims about advanced knowledge in science and alchemy, and how one can become godlike, immortal, separated from the material body which the soul is controlled by, and become free from the baggage of this material world. He appears and vanishes on sight, much like the fae and supernatural entities of folklore, such as demons, jinn and even extraterrestrials. He can read minds, and even communicate telepathically, and if that is not all, he has the ability to travel through walls and locked doors. Although this man, who claims he did it, found immortality and spiritual alchemy at the ends of the earth, the very core of Gaia, and believe himself to have become a god in his own right, I believe he has been deceived, and is nothing more than a ghost, who doesn't know, or want to accept, that he has physically died. He has given up his soul, to learn the answers to the secrets of creation, and in return he has received a great deception, forever trapped in a deception, by beings that ascend from the bottomless pit, those many have claimed to be guiding spirits, and ascended masters. Some have gone as far as to claim they are guardian angels, here to help us on our life path, to attain good luck, financial and relationship success. So many are deceived by these ancient sages, masters of deception, whose only goal is to lead astray mankind that is living on the earth. And one of those entities and inhabitants is a female entity, or what I perceive to be a female fallen angel, no other than the goddess ETIDORHPA, the deceiving spirit of desire, Aphrodite herself, who had an abode in the second heaven, exactly where the second book of Enoch claims the planet Venus is located, which before her own fall, or call it descent to the earth, was ruled by the Queen of Heaven, herself, the daughter of a lesser god, the consort of both fallen angel Lucifer and many great men from the past. She has many names. To the Sumerians she was Inanna, Lilith, to the Satanists, Aphrodite, to the Greeks, Astaroth, to the Jews, Astarte, to the Canaanites, Freya, to the Norse, Vikings, and Scandinavians, Rati, to the Hindus, Hathor, to the Egyptians, goddess Bridget, to the Irish, goddess Mari, to the Basque, Sophia Pistis to the Gnostic Christians, and goddess Danu to the ancient Celts and the Tuatha De Danann. So who does ETIDORHPA claim she is, to her foolish prisoners, which she trapped inside her web of lies, in order to deceive their minds, and fill with ideas and hopes of spiritual enlightenment? I will quote to you from the book of ETIDORHPA, who she, herself claims she is, and will elaborate on the lies for you thereafter.
My name is ETIDORHPA. In me you behold the spirit that elevates man, and subdues the most violent of passions. In history, so far back in the dim ages as to be known now as legendary mythology, have I ruled and blessed the world. Unclasp my power over man and beast, and while heaven dissolves, the charms of paradise will perish. I know no master. The universe bows to my authority. Stars and suns enamored pulsate and throb in space and kiss each other in waves of light, atoms cold embrace and cling together, structures inanimate affiliate with and attract inanimate structures, bodies dead to other noble passions are not dead to love. The savage beast, under my enchantment, creeps to her lair, and gently purrs over her offspring. Even man becomes less violent, and sheathes his weapon and smothers his hatred as I soothe his passions beside the loved ones in the privacy of his home. I have been known under many titles, and have comforted many peoples. Strike my name from time's record, and the lovely daughters of Zeus and Dione would disappear, and with them would vanish the grace and beauty of woman. The sweet conception of the frothed child of the Cypress Sea would be lost. Venus, the goddess of love, would have no place in song, and love herself, the holiest conception of the poet, man's superlative conception of heaven's most precious charms, would be buried with the myrtle and the rose. My name is ETIDORHPA, interpret it rightly, and you have what has been to humanity the essence of love, the mother of all that ennobles. He who loves a wife worships me, she, who in turn makes a home happy, is typical of me. I am ETIDORHPA, the beginning and the end of earth. Behold in me the antithesis of envy, the opposite of malice, the enemy of sorrow, the mistress of life, the queen of immortal bliss. Do you know, she continued, and her voice, soft and sweet, carried with it a pleasurable sense of truthfulness indescribable, do you know that man's idea of heaven places me, ETIDORHPA, on the highest throne? With the charm of maiden pure, I combine the devotion of wife and the holiness of mother. Take from the life of man the treasures I embody, and he will be homeless, childless, moveless. The thought of heaven will in such a case be as the dismal conception of a dreary platitude. A life in such a heaven devoid of love, and this the scriptures teach, is one of endless torment. Love, by whatever name the conception is designated, rules the world. Divest the cold man of science, of the bond that binds him to his life thought, and his work is ended. Strike from the master in music the chord that links his soul to the voice he breathes, and his songs will be hushed. Deaden the sense of love which the artist bears his art, and as the spirit that underlies his thought scenes vanishes, his touch becomes chilled, and his brush inexpressive. The soldier thinks of his home and country, and without a murmur sheds his lifeblood. And yet there are debasing phases of love, for as love of country builds a nation, so love of pillage may destroy it. Love of the holy and the beautiful stands in human life opposed to love of the debasing and vicious, and I, ETIDORHPA, am typical of the highest love of man. As the same force binds the molecules of the rose and the violet as well as those of noxious drugs, so the same soul conception may serve the love of good or the love of evil. Love may guide a tyrant or actuate a saint, may make man torture his fellow, or strive to ease his pain. Thus, man's propensity to serve his holy or his evil passion may each be called a degree in love, and in the serving of that passion the love of one heart may express itself as the antithesis of love in another. As bitter is to some men's taste more pleasant than sweet, and sour is yet more grateful to others, so one man may love the beautiful, another delight in the grotesque.
As you can hear, from the words of ETIDORHPA, which is Aphrodite, the so-called goddess of love, herself, that she claims to be the embodiment of love, regardless of what that love is, or what it's for. In other words, whether you love to harm people and animals, or whether you love to help them, whether you are sexually attracted to young children, animals or of either the same or opposite sex, love is love. There is no distinction between the love for good, or even the love for evil, for both is from God, and of God, and is God, and this love rules the world supreme. This deceptive female fallen angel even has the audacity to claim, the scripture teaches this too, I have never read in any of the true scriptures, that any and all love is acceptable to God, for the love to harm others or animals or innocent little children, at the expense of fulfilling your own evil desires, is not of God. Those that love the grotesque, and execute inhumane and evil acts against others, stems from the lowest pits of hell, the very belly of the beast, the place where the Fae ascend from. Many people whom live in the old Celtic countries, or who have had an interest in fairy folklore, or fairy magic, would have heard of the Fae folk, the good people, the Sheetha, the little people or the gentry. What you may or may not know, is who are this supernatural race of beings, that cohabit with us mortals on the earth, and often intermingle their genetics with that of the human race. People have heard of alien encounters, and abductions, but have you heard of fairy abductions, and encounters? This fairy tale is as old as time. It's a tale of Beauty and the Beast, and it is a tale of seductive and deceptive spirit beings, which not only wish to be us, but wish to replace us on the earth. Many books have been written about their plans to do so. ETIDORHPA and the coming race are just some examples, but before they can do this, they first have to merge their genetics with ours, and that is not hard to do, when you consider how it has been done, starting in ancient Sumer, and possibly ending in what the scripture refers to as the end of days, when they will mingle themselves with the seed of men, but will not cleave together. Just as iron does not mix with miry clay, so too will their kingdom be as brittle as it is strong. How many Christians actually understand what they read in the scriptures? Who are they in them, which is distinguished from the seed of men? Could it be referring to the seed of the serpent, as the prophecy of Genesis was given to the woman that was seduced by the serpent? Let's explore who the Tuatha themselves claim they are. Not of the seed of Adam are we, nor is Abraham our father, but of the seed of the proud angel, driven forth from heaven. Now many know that the proud angel is referring to the serpent in the Garden of Eden. He goes by many titles: Lucifer the light bearer, Satan the accuser of man, Azazel the goat demon, and even the peacock angel, the god of the Yazidis, the false angel of light, that claims he is Gabriel, the god of the woods, Cernunnos, and even Woden, the Norse god. But that is just the paternal side of this race. What about the maternal side? Their great mother, the goddess Danu, the water goddess, fertility goddess, great mother Mater, the mother of harlots, that slept with the fallen angel Azazel and begot herself some demonic offspring. I know, I said there will only be 2 parts to this video, but it looks like there will be 3 after all, as the information and research on Inanna turned out to be far deeper and extensive than I suspected it would be, and therefore the video would be too long to continue as one. In the next part, I will go even deeper into the merfolk, aka mermaid races, also known as the Finn folk, their sorcery, shape-shifting abilities, their wisdom and knowledge they imparted to the ancient Sumerians, in the form of fish gods and goddesses, such as Dogon, Oannes and Derketo, and their bloodline which is merged with the mortal kings, queens, prince, princess and nobility generals of the past, such as described in the cases of Semiramis, Merlin, Saint Bridget, the daughter of a druid priest, and Queen Morgan le Fay of Ireland. I am hoping that it would shed some light on the question as to who, what and where the gentry and ascended masters comes from, and the deceptions they use to interact with us humans, and especially those seeking after the hidden and sacred mystery knowledge of the past. But for now, that is all for this video folks, and will be continued in part 3, of the children of Enlil and Enki, and their elite royal bloodline on the earth. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and have gained some better understanding on the occult, myths, folklore, and in my own humble opinion, the true history of the supernatural, which has been hidden from humanity in the form of mythology and folklore. Please join me for part 3, which hopefully will be completed by the end of May. As always, thanks for watching, God bless, all the best, and continue to shed some light in this dark and mysterious world we live in. Goodbye for now and have a nice day.